we're going to start off with the chunky topic of local government reorganisation. I'm sure everybody's aware that that is happening, but I suspect there may be some lack of clarity about exactly what that means and what's going on and what we can expect in the future. So we have Colin Glover from Carlisle Council currently. Is that still the case, Colin? And Cumbria Local Enterprise Partnership. We have Virginia Taylor, who is part of one of the is in Eden District Council and part of one of the shadow authorities. Shadow authorities are not an international network of super criminals. They are transitional bodies to get us to the new setup. And we've got Darren Crossley, who is working across both of the new shadow authorities. So perhaps, Darren, could you just kick us off with a sort of brief overview of where maybe a little bit about where this has all come from without rehashing debates, and kind of what the process is at the moment?
Yeah, very happy to, Chris. And just for clarity, I'm Darren Crossley, the Deputy Chief Exec at Carlisle City Council. And although, like many of my colleagues, I am in effect working on the larger local government reorganisation programme, in truth, predominantly, I'm more Cumberland focused. So I'd be grateful for any colleagues today if I miss something that's more Westmoreland and Furness orientated, just to jump in, really. But the programme itself is the product of many years, actually, and I'll not get into any politics of this, but many years of debate in Cumbria about unitary and different forms of government. As it stands at the moment, we have a county council, as you know, operating right across Cumbria. We have 6 district councils and then a huge number, actually, of parish councils, and they form, in effect, 3 tiers of government. And certainly a good number of people in not just Cumbria, but other places, of course, in the UK have begun to think that this is perhaps, a little bit heavy in terms of the number of tiers. And it's also difficult at times, and I bet it is for some of you as well, to kind of navigate, really, how do we best get services, support, advice, guidance, assistance, grants, and so on from local government. And there's been, as I say, a debate amongst politicians in Cumbria for many, many years about that. That has culminated now, actually, into a legal process. So quite some time ago now, the Secretary of State requested or asked for ideas and submissions in the end, formal submissions from local government as to what this structure should look like in Cumbria. And of those that were submitted, he then decided on a form of government, which is what we're now working to. And that is 2 unitary councils. So that will be a collection of all local government services into 2 discrete councils. One that's named Cumberland Council, and that's the shadow that you just referred to before, Chris, and one called Westmoreland and Furness. So for very speedy convenience, read Cumberland Council as being what is currently Copeland, Allerdale and Carlisle, Westmoreland and Furness as being Eden, Barrow and Furness and South Lakeland. So roughly from Barrow to Alston and from Millham to Brampton and beyond, that's the geographies we're talking about. And the important thing, I think, to say is these are administrative geographies, and the sort of historic status and, in fact, the sort of county civic functions of Cumbria are still in place. So it's again, it's not a very clear picture, but to all intents, administration is through the new authorities from the 1st of April 2023, and that's a really key date for us. It's not a date we can move. It's set in stone. It's been agreed by Parliament. It's part of a structural change order, which is the legal process for the establishment of these 2 authorities. So in a nutshell, that's it, really. That's what we're all driving towards now. And it's quite tough. There's very little time, really, to be able to do that. But fortunately, we've had elections and we have 2 shadow authorities for Cumberland and Westmoreland and Furness. We have 2 shadow executives, this being the sort of ruling groups of the 2 authorities. And we have leaders and portfolio holders and people nominated to look after areas of the councils, the shadow authorities, I should say, business. And you've got Virginia on the call today, representing Westmoreland and Furness, and Ann Quilter, Councillor Ann Quilter, is the representative for Cumberland as well. So culture is part of this process, very much thought of as being a key and important part, and not least because Cumbria as a whole and the 6 districts have got a long track record of supporting culture and engaging and really seeing that as being a part of people's lives. Lots to talk about that. I'm sure that would be another diverting discussion along the way, the sort of success factors of all of that. So just let me say a little about the process, about the strategies and structures, and then perhaps come back round to culture then and where we might be going next. So as I say, we've got a deadline, 1st of April, programme board to be able to move forward. A singular programme board operating across the 2 councils has been in establishment for over a year now. And we also have a discrete and specific programme board for Cumberland, and the same for Westmoreland and Furness. These programme boards are really driving the project, in effect, to get to the start line. We haven't actually got to that start line yet. That's the 1st of April. And you will hear, you may well have heard anyway, an awful lot of emphasis on day one, safe and legal. So all of those key statutory functions of each authority is the main focus of work. Because what the first objective of this is to see a seamless transition to 2 new authorities, which, if you think about the number of staff and services, over 9,000 in the county council alone, you'll begin to appreciate the complexity of disaggregating those services into 2 new unitaries, and at the same time aggregating up 6 district council services into 2 new areas as well. So it's a pretty complex process. There's a lot of time, effort, a lot of cost actually involved in it. And we're making some progress, making some good progress. So as I said, the elections took place. We have our shadow authorities, we have our leaders and portfolio holders and executives. We also have 2 chief exec elects now. So early on in this process, a recruitment process has taken place. So Andrew Seekins is to be the chief executive of Cumberland, and is pretty much full-time on that job already. And Sam Plum is to be the chief exec of Westmoreland and Furness. We have also recruited in the last month what we call Section 151 and monitoring officers. So these are the leads for finance and for governance. So we've got the nucleus of the management teams for each of those authorities now in place as well. I have to say, these people have still got day jobs. Andrew Seekins and Sam are still engaged heavily in the operation of Barrow and Allerdale councils, but increasingly you're going to find them right at the heart of this. So it's another good milestone ticked off. And just before I talk a little bit about that process on the structures, let's just say a quick word about strategy. So each of the shadow authorities has published and has been consulting on a first council plan as well, a first council strategy, and you may well have seen this either through media or received a copy or seen it in some other form. Been fairly wide consultation on these early plans, and what I would say, and I feel obliged to say at every opportunity, is these plans are conceived of a very, very short space of time. So they are not detailed, we will be doing this by this date. They are much more about the broad brush of intent of their 2 new authorities, what direction they're taking, how they'd like to go about their work, in effect, what's different. And you should expect to see in service planning terms, in terms of the type of work that you may be familiar with under the districts and county approach that we have so far, a lot more detail. You should also expect to see, I believe, willing to be challenged by anyone else on this, a lot of transference as well. So there's an awful lot of project work and support work that goes on for the sector, engagement, funding, etc., that should seamlessly transfer part of day one. Okay, so those strategies have been out to consultation. They're there now, and they're the kind of roadmap, if you like, a sort of high-level strategic roadmap for transforming these 2 new councils. And culture is certainly going to play a role in that, because in the structures of both of these, in the senior structures, both councils have identified culture in their structures. So I'm referring to my well-thumbed pages here now. In Westmoreland and Furness, that's described under a Thriving Communities Directorate. So this is a collection of services that have been brought together to focus on really assisting communities. And there will be an assistant director. This is still part of consultation, by the way, but there will be assistant director around community infrastructure, it's called. Snappy title. I know we're great in local government at inventing these titles. And that's where services such as libraries, leisure, culture, arts, events, festivals, visitor management, heritage and historic environment museums, and so on, they're located in there. Now, I'll say this for Westmoreland and Furness because I think it's true, and I certainly know it is in Cumberland. These are not meant to be little self-contained silos where all the work takes place. They're meant to be part of a bigger system of work, which relies also on things like tourism and economic development and education and social care. So there's quite a bit of work for these services to transform themselves to be purely about assets and direct services into being more engaged. So over in Cumberland, we've also got the same in a sense, in that there's a Place and Sustainable Growth Directorate, which is pretty much a different way of saying thriving. And in that area, the title to look out for as these things develop will be an assistant director over the neighbourhood services, all the same services bracketed and pushed into that same management structure. These structures
I'm just aware of time and wanting to allow the some questions from the floor.
I've got about two more things to
brilliant.
say.
Okay, yes.
So those structures are out to consultation. So the people you work with will be engaged in that at the moment, to be thinking about how's that all going to come together. Now, I'll just bring this back round to the final piece then. You may well have been working with those colleagues of mine across these two councils around cultural strategy making, around programs of work, projects that are funded and others. As I said before, the idea is that we transition through. What I do also know is that we're trying to join up the district strategies around this. So I, for one, are involved in conversations with Allerdale and Copeland about bringing Carlisle's cultural framework together with the emerging strategy for culture across those two areas. And that is part of what we're calling a transformation programme, which we expect to see in the next 2 to 3 years of local government work. So we're beginning to think about that as well, Chris. And on that note, I'll bring things to a close, because I'm sure you're right. It's probably better to try and answer some questions.
Well, I'd like to bring Virginia in. You, I think, also have what Darren describes as a day job alongside your position in the Shadow Authority. Perhaps you'd just like to explain your various hats.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. So I'm leader of Eden District Council. Have been since 2019. Complicated but extremely successful alliance of 4 political parties. So, and arts and culture, it was my day job. I was a dancer, a professional dancer, and then went on to teach and so on and so forth. So, developing arts in Eden, consolidating arts in Eden was, very important. I've only been here since 2019. We've only sort of just got a running start. I am portfolio holder for art sits in my portfolio. So I'm on the cabinet for Westmoreland and Furness with sustainable communities and localities as my snappy title. So this means that so just following up on what Darren said, allegedly under thriving communities, art sits, but I'm also scattered all over the place. So there isn't just one place where arts will sit, and the people who will do that work, the directors and assistant directors, aren't appointed yet. So there's lots of unknowns in exactly how it's going to work out. So I'd just like to say that the future is potentially strong because I hope you won't be offended at arts being sort of seen as community development or economic development. If the wind's blowing in your direction, go with it. And actually, under levelling up one, the round that's actually happened, arts and culture figured as infrastructure in almost every successful bid. So, you know, we just got to be sort of like pragmatic about it. If that's the way the government thinks, although, well, who knows, what's going forward, then, you know, then this just needs to be sort of like, just we take our place in that. Of course we develop the economy, of course we support communities, and we just sort of like make sure that we're clear about phrasing it in terms that are recognizable to the people who are reading it. Similarly, you know, the Arts Council's Let's Create, that's, you know, absolutely bang on for, I don't know what most of us are doing, except possibly some studio practitioners, I don't know. What do I know? So in what's happening in Westmoreland Furness is that obviously we have the 3 districts, Barrow, South Lakeland and Eden, you know, so we've got Alston and Barrow in the same authority, which, you know, so one of them is kind of like in post-industrial problems to some extent, which means that they can access government money and arts money. So they've got this fantastic, as well as you all know, this fantastic Creative People and Places project, which is brilliant. South Lakeland and Eden District Council. So Eden never had a sort of industrial revolution in the first place. So you couldn't have more different sets. You couldn't have more different histories of how they've dealt with the arts and culture. So Darren was saying that you're trying to merge the cultural strategies of the 3. Ours are such like oranges, spoons, and mini cars that, you know, merging them makes very, very little sense. We're talking to each other. The artists are talking to each other. There is a sort of kind of a lead person in each, but don't feel left out. It's really, you know, it's really informal at this point. Just talking from their point of view, and practicalities. The council plan should be an inspiration and guide, and the service planning, as Darren puts it, you know, is where that things actually transfer. So the council plan is an inspiration and a guide. It can mean anything.
Thank you.
So the projects projects should all transfer into the new authority. Anything that's going on at the moment should just across. The things is that we're going to do and haven't yet, forward planning, that is vulnerable. That is vulnerable because it hasn't got a slot in the budget for next year. But all we have to do is just have faith and keep going and don't lose heart at this point, because we certainly can't put anything in the budget line. We certainly can't put anything on the table with the politicians and the officers and the new authorities unless we've got something to put there. So we just have to have faith and keep going.
But you seem to be suggesting that there is opportunity for lobbying, influencing, advocating for the cultural sector in terms of shaping how the new authorities move forward.
Well, you don't need to lobby me. We need, for me, I need to lobby the rest of the cabinet. I need to lobby. I need to make sure that when the officers actually come in, they agree. So I've got stuff. I need stuff to tell them. So, you know, I need clarity about what's going on and what's wanted in order to be able to shape, help shape and deliver the future.
Thank you. Colin, if I could bring you in and just picking up on the point that Jonathan made, and just to be clear, are these 2 things going to be counties? What's the kind of strict formal definition?
Unitary authorities.
Unitary authorities.
Is that right, Darren? He didn't say no. That's rubbish.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So Colin, I'm just wondering about, obviously, you know, we are the Cumbria Arts and Culture Network, and there's debate to be had about this, but my senses that this community kind of feels there is some kind of geographical identity that is Cumbria and will kind of still be Cumbria in a year or so's time. Do you have a feeling that that is going to be the case in kind of other aspects? I mean, for instance, the LEP, is there going to be a separate LEP for each of the two new authorities?
No, there isn't. And Cumbria as a place isn't going to disappear. As Darren said earlier on, the two new councils are local government administrative boundaries. We're not taking everything else apart. So Cumbria Local Enterprise Partnership will continue in its own form. And what it will be trying to do is work across both authorities and support both authorities on all the economic growth areas. In terms of the creative and cultural sector panel, which I chair, we are aimed to be the eyes and ears of creativity and culture for the main board of LEP. So people identify with places, and they may not necessarily be in the boundaries that we've been given for local government. So, for example, Carlisle and Eden Mind, Carlisle and Eden Citizens Advice Bureau, they're not going to suddenly split, I don't think, because part of their operations are in two different local authorities. Similarly, Borderlands covers the whole of Cumbria, both authorities. It previously covered the 7 authorities, but it also goes across into Northumberland, I should say, and Southern Scotland. The Lord Lieutenant role will continue. The High Sheriff of Cumbria will continue. This is very much about Cumbria will continue to be a place, and we are there to advocate for our own places wherever they sit in the local government boundaries.
Oh, that's reassuring to hear, I think. Look, I've got some other questions, but I'm going to throw it open to the floor because we've got about 7 or 8 minutes before we really ought to move on so we can pack everything in this morning. Please raise your hand either physically or digitally, or pop a question in chat. Have we got anybody that wants to grill the panel? Richard Foster. Oh, we're not hearing you. You don't seem to be muted, but
sorry,
there we go. Yep.
Didn't have my microphone plugged in. Even more of a rookie error. My question was about shared cultural assets. I suppose specifically library services and books. How are they going to be chivied up? Are we all just going to divvy up one Jane Austen, one to Cumbria, and one Jane Austen to Cumberland, and one to Westmoreland? How's it going to work?
Who'd like to pick up on that? Virginia, are you?
Well, there is regularly on a Friday there is a meeting of where exactly what happens with shared services and adopted services and so on is hashed out. And what's happening to libraries, I can't remember. Can you, Darren?
Yeah, libraries is to be segregated across the two. And Richard, to pick up that sort of assets and those kind of non-building assets like a library book or the components of a museum, for example, they will go with those assets. So we've already been through a pretty laborious but helpful way of actually just identifying those. And I won't bore you, Chris, and waste your time now, but there's also some balancing act to be achieved here because, you know, the arrangements are by place and the budgets are county-wide on many of these things. So we have to do some sort of formulate balancing up to make sure that there's a fair and equitable amount of budget across the two areas. So it's not going to be perfect in the first instance, might need a bit of tweaking, but loosely that's how it's happening. It's by through the programme.
And you just mentioned funding there, and Cumbria Arts and Culture Network has had funding from Cumbria County Council. Will there be some streams that will still continue to cover the whole area, or will it be a case of kind of applying to both of the unitary authorities?
There's two things to say quickly, and I don't know if Virginia or Colin might want to comment as well. One is that the budgets for the two new authorities are under development now, and they are effectively, as I say, aggregating the district council budgets. yeah, and disaggregating the county council. And those will come together, and with our best efforts in this year, I don't think will look radically different to what you saw before. So in other words, those funds are likely to still be a part of the budget. The second thing to say is that, as everybody knows, I'm sure, either within local government or within your sector or within any other sector we can think of, we're facing really significant external pressures in terms of costs. So I can't believe that councillors are not going to have to take some pretty difficult choices over the next few years. So back to the point of who to lobby and who to really raise the profile of culture with, which of course this group's all about. So there is going to need to be some clarity about how to best invest in culture, isn't there?
Thank you. Probably got time for 2 more questions if people would like to raise their hands. Derek.
Thank you. On the question of funding, should any of us be in a lucky position of having promised funding for projects from one of the current authorities, such as Grizedale, will that promise still hold good with the rearrangement, or do we need to make sure that the money is actually in the bank before the change happens?
I would say no need for panic. If you've got an arrangement in place that's got the right governance, got the right approvals, which it sounds like you have, then I wouldn't panic about that. I would also say if either of the 2 new authorities is taking control of being accountable, if you like, for someone else's funds, like the Arts Council or other funders, then they're obligated, by contract to see that through as well. So that's not funds that anybody, whether under pressure or not, would be able to divert. They are certainly ring fenced. So I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Could I just jump in there? Might be worth checking the small print, Derek.
Always worth checking the small print. We're going to need to move on fairly swiftly so we can get everything in the second half of the programme. Could I just ask, I don't know which of the 3 of you, Virginia, Darren, Colin, might be best placed to answer this. Other than the kind of D-Day thing at the beginning of April next year, is there another sort of significant stage or event that we should be expecting? Colin, you had your hand up anyway, so.
Sorry, yes, it wasn't on that point. It was really just a follow-up to what Darren was saying in terms of how we make the case for arts and culture. I've already had discussions with people in both authorities, and one of the things is about saying it's not just about saying we demand this, we demand that. It's about making the case for arts and culture to both authorities, as the sector has a very strong influence on the economy and well-being. So it's not just a nice to have. And that is really the point that we're wanting to make to both authorities, that actually we can be here to help, not just to demand things.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's very much become the sort of the accepted agenda and approach. Yes, is there anything we should be looking out for before April, or should we just let you all get on with it and embrace the bright new future?
There will, yes. Sorry, I was just going to say that there is a change at the end of the year, which is when the substantive people at the top level actually start. So on the 31st of December, that is a definite handbrake off moment. But whether anybody will see a great deal of difference, because both of the chief execs in both halves are already chief execs in those halves. So the poor things are already sort of more or less doing this full time anyway in their spare time. So that, they've both got 2 full-time jobs. So so that is a change, but I don't know if it's a change that will be visible from outside. Other than that, Darren, I think it's just roll it until, the budgets will be interesting.
They will. My quick advice, Chris, would be stay close to your existing contacts within the authorities as they are, and when you feel that it's appropriate because of a term of funding or something like that, you know, do get in contact and ask the right questions about what happens next. The kind of big beasts of these two will come together and they will try to enact these plans, these two strategic plans that I mentioned. The way they'll do that is through this service planning, and they will need to engage with all of you around that for delivery. So it will definitely not be a case of isolation and just get on with it. There'll be much more of a requirement to integrate. I think more than ever because of scarcity of funds, actually, and exactly what Colin just said, making the case for culture and its value. So yes, there will definitely be other touch points, but as Virginia said, the sort of handbrake is off. I like that. Is 31st of December.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you all three, Darren, Virginia and Colin. Obviously, you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the call. And we're going to move on now to Liz Critchley from Signal Film and Media and Hazel Stone from Forestry England to talk about a rather lovely exhibition that, if you get your skates on, is just running for another week. So pay attention and get yourself organised to get to Grizedale. Liz, what's it all about?
Oh, hello, good morning. Can you hear me okay? Is that all working?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for letting us talk this morning about the exhibition that we've got on. Amy, could you put my slides on if you don't mind? That would be great. Thank you so much. That's tech guru, so thank you. Yeah, so this is a partnership program, which is, well, it's part of a partnership program up at Grizedale Forest, and Nature Now is the culmination of a series of workshops that we've been doing over the past 5 months. So if you put onto the next slide for me, please. So the exhibition is running from the 26th of September, which was Monday just gone, and it's on until the 9th of October. And we're showcasing a series of artworks from participants who worked with the artist Super Collider and Michaela French throughout spring and summer 2022. So you can see there we've got a couple of images as Mila in the forest, and then we've got 3 of our participants listening to some of the sounds that we recorded in the forest as well. Do you want to next slide? Yeah, so this project started back in May with Signal Film and Media and Grizedale Forest, where we recruited adults and youth to take part. So there we go, why? So the project was created to encourage and support new engagement with the forest and grow understanding of how Forestry England manages resilient forests in terms of climate change. The devastation inflicted by Storm Arwen in November 2021 and the impact on the forest was a reminder of how vulnerable these special places are and how important nature is now and for future generations. So for Signal Film and Media, working in partnership was absolutely brilliant because it gave us a chance for us to bring some of our participants, mainly from Barrow-in-Furness, and deliver creative opportunities in the forest. Lots of the people who actually took part in the different groups hadn't been to the forest before. So it was really nice to engage people who hadn't had those kind of experiences. I don't know if Hazel wants to kind of jump in here because she was part of the original thought process into this project.
Yeah, thanks, Liz, and hi everyone. Yeah, we've worked with Signal Film and Media before on the Digital Forest project, and this was a development from that, and it was very much about us kind of bringing together new audiences, practitioners, amazing arts organisations in the areas to help us really build deeper connections with the forest and what we do and how we look after it. So as part of the process, which Signal led beautifully in collaboration with us, we had rangers, foresters, and ecologists and various other members of our team that manage the forest just tell the participants and the artists just that sort of the thinking and the science behind how we look after the forest. So that was the initial thought process from Forestry England, was that we're not really telling people how we're looking after the nation's forests, so we really want to do that through the arts. So that's why we approached Signal again, and yeah, so back over to you, Liz.
Thank you. So next slide, please. So yeah, I wanted to just show some images of the background of the project and part of the workshops. And Michaela French worked with the age group 11 to 15, where we went to the forest and did lots of long walks, about 2-hour walks. We looked at nature, and we also took away some thoughts and some objects from the forest as well, to create animations that reflected and communicated the children's experiences of the forest. So next slide, and I'll show you some of the outcomes. Thank you. So we've got a series of animations on display. We've also got sculptures that the children created, and we've also got booklets and research and photographs of their experiences in the forest. And some of these are incredibly beautiful, actually. We've got smells that they smelt, we've got sounds that they heard, we've got just their kind of emotions in the forest, and we've also got their feelings on climate change. So the animations show all kinds of things of trees being blown down in winds, but also really positive aspects of nature as well, and positive connections that they had in the forest. Yeah, and also we've got our little fox, which is my own particular favourite sculpture in the forest. He was made from leaves, all pinned in, and he's on display in the exhibition. Next slide, please. With our adult group, we worked with Furness Multicultural Community Forum to recruit some of our participants, and throughout this project, we've been thrilled just to see how many people have come from the adult group actually and made the trip to Grizedale Forest. So we had initially started with a group of 7, which grew to a group of 16. And we also visited the forest through spring, summer, and actually the exhibitions in autumn. So we saw and sort of have produced images throughout the different seasons as well. So this group took part in a series of workshops, both research and practical, and they took photographs, developed them with a Polaroid lab. And again, I've put highlighting nature, aesthetic and friendship. But I think for us, friendship and enjoyment was a really major part of this project with both groups, to be honest, with the youth and the adult group. And I think you can see some of the extremely smiling faces, which were just like, we couldn't catch anybody not smiling really, and even dancing, as you can see on the left, and even singing, I think as well. Hazel, I think you heard our participants singing in the forest at one point. Yeah. So it was a project that was really full of energy and enjoyment, and their enjoyment kind of led a lot of the artwork as well. So if you slip to the next slide, I've just got another series of outcomes for these artists who work with Super Collider. And the Polaroid installation covers one of the whole walls. I've just given you a little sample there because I really want you to go and see the exhibition. But you can see that not only did they take images of the forest and of sort of the impact of climate change and things that they loved, but they also took pictures of people and people in the forest and people engaging in the forest as well. We included a lot of the photographs the participants took, and we've also included a sound piece that they recorded as well. So the exhibition is over 2 rooms. We've separated them. So you've got the adult participation group and their outcomes and content, and then you go through into the other room and we've got the children's outputs and content as well. So it's 2 separate exhibitions, so 2 for 1 really, to get lots of value for money, because it's a free exhibition as well, so there's lots of value for money. So Hazel, did you want to add anything else, because we're coming to the end? I think I've managed to fit everything into 8 minutes there, which I'm very pleased about.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. Thank you so much for explaining that. And just coming back to a point about the point about climate change. In our early discussions, we were very keen that we not only spoke about climate crisis, but climate solutions as well, because the plants, the seeds that we select now are seeds, there's a lot of science behind it, that's part of our forest design plans, and that they're trees that are growing for now, but for future climates as well. So, and all the environmental thinking that goes behind how we manage forests became part of the conversation. But also it was really was a really wonderful experience, because we wanted to see through our audience's eyes what they were seeing and what they knew and what they wanted to know, and how they like to engage with the forest. But we are part of nature, and so it was great that, you know, the experience was a very positive one, and very inclusive as well. So yeah, many thanks to all involved.
Lovely bit of positivity. Thank you very much. So it's open every day, is that right? Through till a week on Sunday?
Yes. Yeah. But actually it might be extended. I've just heard this morning, it might be extended by a couple of weeks. So I haven't had a chance to tell Liz that yet. So I will send out updated times and dates, but there's this exhibition, our Richard Harris exhibition, and obviously the forest and all the sculptures in the forest for people to come and enjoy. So please do come. Absolutely.
If you've not experienced Grizedale Forest, it's there are artworks throughout it, so it's always an exhibition. Thank you so much, Hazel and Liz. We're going to leap up to Brampton now and Hadrian's Wall, and Maureen Laurie is going to tell us a bit about wall 3 words. There's a little kind of video. There's no audio with it, so maybe if Amy can run that, we'll just sort of talk over it. So Maureen, tell us what this is all about.
Hi everyone, and thanks very much for having me on this morning. So Wall 3 Words is a community arts project. It's part of the Hadrian's Wall 1900 festival that's running over the year and across the entirety of the wall. And Wall 3 Words is one of the projects that has received a community grant as part of the festival. So it's running at Brampton Community Centre, just about to start, and we're using the What 3 Words app along the wall in the section between Lanercost and Bird Oswald as a basis to inspire poetry and art celebrating the wall, its 1900-year history, life along the wall, the communities that have lived there, the environment and landscape. So it is about generating art through the community, with the community, and then this will culminate in an exhibition of the work that the community produces at Brampton Community Centre in November. So we're working on recruiting at the moment. We've got 2 schools involved. Prism Arts from Carlisle are coming on board, and an arts group, a poetry group, individual artists and poets, and lots of other groups also involved. So recruitment is going really well, actually. I'm really keen to get as many, a wide range of artists and poets of all skill levels, from amateur right across to professional. So it's a real celebration of the wall at all levels. So this is basically what the project is about. We're running some creative writing workshops starting on Sunday the 9th for people to get involved with, and we have a poet on board who will be working with them. As part of the project, there is also commission to the poet, and people are being encouraged, once they found their 3 meters square. I'll just talk a little bit about the What 3 Words app, because I realise I haven't. So the What 3 Words app basically allows you to pinpoint a precise location anywhere in the world. The developers of the app have divided the world into 3 meter squares, and each 3 meter square has been given randomly generated 3 words. Those 3 words never change. They may be duplicated, but you never see them in the same combination. So those 3 words and the 3 meter square are acting as the stimulus for the creative inspiration for the poetry and the art. The poet, I just noticed a question, the poet is James Oates. He's well known, particularly on the Northeast scene, as a spoken word poet. He's an award-winning poet and is brilliant at working with people and bringing out the voices. He's mentored quite a number of poets to success, so he's going to be working on this project with me. I think that's pretty much everything. The other little thing that's happening is when people have created a poem, we're inviting them to come up to the wall, to stand on their 3 meter square and take a selfie video. And those little videos are going to be stitched into a film. So you also have a filmmaker on board. And the exhibition will comprise the poetry from the community, the art from the community, and the exhibition film, which will also include the poets commissioned poem, which will bring all the threads of the project together, including some of the phrases that have come from the community poems.
Right.
The exhibition will run for a month from the 14th of November.
And so do you have to live in or near Brampton to take part, or if you can get yourself there, are people from further afield welcome to join in?
People are welcome to join in, but obviously the funding is for the Brampton area and Brampton district. But as long as the majority of participants are representing Brampton in that area, it is fine. We have got one or two other people on board from the northeast because they love the idea and they want to be part of it. So we're not turning people away, but we're trying not to dilute it too much.
Yeah.
So you can, there's this information on the Brampton Community Centre website. There's a page for Wall 3 Words, and all the information about how to get involved, how to join, information about writing a poem. There's poets packs and artists packs that you can download, which gives you all the information that you need to get started. And then to register, if you could, you can email me at wall3words@gmail.com to let me know that you're taking part. So I've got a sort of closing date, but it's not really a closing date. It's just a date for me to know that I've got a viable exhibition, which I know already that I have, is next Friday, the 7th of October. But latecomers will also be welcomed.
Great, thank you. And yes, in chat, Amy has put in the web link for the project, so people can find out more there. Fantastic. Yes, I'm currently speaking to you from Value Albums Sport. Lovely. And this wasn't advertised, but we can just squeeze in Sarah Kikas, who is going to tell us about a conference. And this is quite urgent because today is the last day for the early bird deal. So
yes, so Cumbria Music Hub is putting on a live music conference, which is great after 2 years of Zooming, etc. So it is aimed at music educators, but everybody is welcome. And it's called Out of the Box because we want to think, we're encouraging people to step out of the box, think out of the box. And we've got a range of workshop leaders and speakers from across the country, actually, and international speakers as well. We're looking at diversity, equality and inclusion. And we've also got a local speaker, Sarah Bisson, who is fantastic, actually. And she's talking, her talk is music equals good mental health equals good learning. So I've heard Sarah before, and she's really, really interesting on brain functionality and how neurodiversity and music really work together, actually, to help us all. So there's lots of really interesting speakers. I'll just get that. Yes, the snake was my cat's tail earlier. I just pushed her off my knee. And we also have Mark Phillips, who has just left Ofsted, who was the chief. He was the main lead for music, and he's coming up to talk about beyond provision and participation. So what Mark's looking at in music is how do we make sure that we're not just providing a music experience, but we're looking at progression and also high quality music and rigor, and making sure that when we think about it, so his will be a school centric, is making sure that we've really got ambitious leadership. Actually, that's across the board, really. Ambitious leadership when we're thinking about, that could be the arts. How do we really push for that high quality? And of course, everything does need funding, but I think it feeds into that. It's banging the drum of how important arts, culture and music are for us all in terms of mental health and community. What else have we? There's loads of things on there, so if you're interested, I think there's something already on the Facebook page. So it's Cumbria Music Conference, Out of the Box. The early bird ends today, so if you're interested in coming, it's £95 for the day and it goes up to 130 tomorrow.
Okay, and yes, again, the link to the website is in chat there. So who should go?
Who should go? Anybody who is interested in music, education, working with young people, and interested in inclusion, equality. Yes, it's music centric, but I do think particularly Sarah's work will be of interest to people on the neurodiversity, certainly, and working with young people with challenging needs, special needs as well. If you're into body percussion, we've got Ollie Tumner from Stomp coming up. So if you want to have a really exciting day, we've got some really good practical workshops as well. And Lucinda Gochen from National Youth Choirs of Scotland is going to be leading singing workshops as well.
Great, thank you very much. Now actually everybody's been beautifully pithy, so we're comfortably within time. So there's an opportunity for people to ask any other random questions or raise issues or tell us about things we have in the past. At the beginning of the Friday call, invited people to talk about their cultural experiences over the previous week. I just wanted to flag up something that's can still be sampled. Tonight I am going to Theatre by the Lake to see Hot in Here, which is also on tomorrow night, and this ties in quite nicely with the environmental concerns that was touched on at Grizedale by Pigfoot Theatre Company, which is a kind of a determinedly carbon neutral theatre company, and it's described as a protest, a theatre show, an energy generating dance party, and it's powered by the first energy harvesting dance floor in live theatre. So it sounds really interesting, and as I say, you've got a chance to catch that today and tomorrow at Theatre by the Lake in Keswick. Amy.
Sorry, I'm probably going totally off topic again. I just had a question from earlier on, actually, from talking about the local government reorganization. So sorry to drag to that. Yeah. But I just wondered, I don't know who would answer this, but it's more of a general thing, sort of in the current situation, because we've got so many different councils. It's been sort of challenging sometimes to find out who's in charge of art. So kind of first of all, I wondered, will there be art officers? You know, because I know that a few people on the call this morning have talked about art being popped under various different headings, maybe health and wellbeing, communities, economics, that kind of thing. So will there be, you know, actual art officers, and will they be sort of easily findable from somebody? You know, I often, or sometimes get people asking me, you know, who's the arts person for Cumbria County Council, or who's the arts person for such as, because when you go on the website, it's not necessarily there or easy to find. It's, you know, whereas compared to some councils, it's sort of front and centre. So it's up in Dumfries, they've got an arts officer, they've got an arts building, it's all, you know, right there. So yeah, I just wondered, will there be arts officers? If not, you know, will there be easy information that people can just, you know, go online and find out about this kind of thing?
I'm happy to try and answer that. In short, what will happen is that any of those existing arts officers or multidisciplinary cultural sort of staff, they will transfer across to the new authorities. So we have this regulations about TUPE, so protecting their rights, they'll transfer across. I've explained what the sort of management structure will look like, and you're quite right to say that there's this sort of, again, multidisciplinary approach. So what will happen after then, over perhaps a period of years, is some form of transformation into trying to create a more modern approach to how we should tackle things like culture. And that would be an opportunity to say, you know, we believe it should be like this, we believe it should be like that. There'll be some more consultation there. One thing I will take away, though, is that comment about how do you find them, because it is an issue, I know. And I think in the design that we're actually working on this Wednesday of web and of sort of digital content, we could improve vastly, couldn't we, on all of this, in terms of trying to direct people to the right place as swiftly as possible so we can get things going. So it won't happen immediately, but really keen to commit to certainly doing that and trying to improve on that access.
Good to hear. Anybody else got anything they would like to raise or question about local government reorganisation, or indeed anything else we've talked about, or anything we've not talked about at all?
Colin, do you have something?
Colin, yeah.
Yeah, it's not local government, you'll be pleased to know. It's a plug for a new exhibition, which launches tonight and opens tomorrow until the 14th of January at Tully House in Carlisle. And I'm probably the wrong person to talk about this, but it's Hair Untold Stories. And it was developed by the Horniman Museum, and it has come to Tully House, and it goes from tomorrow. And just to give you what they're saying about it, it's from jewellery and dresses to armour and environmental protection. Hair Untold Stories highlights the qualities of hair as a material and explores our complex relationship with our hair, both on and off our heads. So that looks to be a really good exhibition that is launching tomorrow.
Oh, great. Well, I can't speak for Tom, who is in charge of these things, but maybe we can do a bit of a feature of that on a future call if it's running for a while. People can, we encourage people to bring spectacular hairstyles to the Friday call, perhaps. Anybody else got anything they'd like to flag up, publicise, rant about?
Jonathan, I don't know if Jonathan's still here and wanted to quickly mention what he mentioned before the call about audiovisual help or advice. Yes,
he's looking to upgrade his local venue, and was here he is, Jonathan.
Oh, right.
Just put out your plea for help and advice.
Yes, I'm mostly just interested in working out what working out what has worked well in the past for others. We're about to explore improving audiovisual facilities in a potential number of places, village halls and churches and the rest. We have history societies that now have presenters with quite spiffy visuals and so forth, and we just wanted to know what has worked well for other people before we embark upon investment or applying for grants and so forth. One of the things that we've been intrigued by was seemingly in Kendal, they have a digital lounge at the brewery. And one of the features of that is that they have gaming. So I imagine youths can go in there and compete against one another, whether it's there or over the internet or otherwise. But I was wondering if anyone had experience of that, or indeed whether that's the sort of thing which would be a draw for people to village halls to improve the age spread of the people who use them. So it's really just trying to work out what has worked well and what people would recommend from their own experience before we embark on this. It would be quite nice perhaps to get something of a specification together, sort of how to do it or whatever, so that other people who are looking at this in the future can have something to refer to.
So if anybody's got any advice or insights, how should they get in touch with you, Jonathan? I think you're going to put something on Facebook, aren't you?
Yes, I'll take that recommendation and embark on social media.
Okay, lovely.
Thank you.
Right, splendid. Danielle has a workshop tomorrow at Barham Forum Theatre. No, not tomorrow, Sunday.
I remember when, and it's with Age UK at the Forum Theatre on Sunday. So
Splendid. Thank you. You've nicely taken us to exactly 10:30. So I shall impress the grown-ups by the fact that we're finishing exactly on time. Thanks so much to everybody who's contributed. Thanks everybody for joining us.